What is going on, everybody? This is Coach Coleman, Jesse Coleman, and you're checking into another episode of Breakthrough Blueprint, the podcast, where we help you tap into your full potential. And on this week, I have a special guest. For you all who don't know, like when I first came to the KW ecosystem, um, I had a coach. So the very first coach I had is, my guest this week. And from the experience that I've learned over the years of being a coach, I realized that I was probably not that good of a coaching client for my coach. Like being on the other side of things now, I'm like, hell, like I probably was not showing up in the best light that I was supposed to show up in, and yet that is growth. That is, a lot of the things that we go through on our journey of being better with ourselves and being better at what we're doing. And this week's episode, we're going to touch on wellness, right? Not only physically, but also mentally, because as you all know, and we talk about this a lot on the podcast, that there's a lot of people dealing with different things. So we're going to go deep into that. So without further ado, I am going to invite my old coach, who now is, let me just run down some things. She is a MAPS mastery coach. She is a life coach. She is the community leader for KW Wellness, all thing making sure people are um, the best version of themselves. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Kimberly to the stage. Kimberly, how are you?
Well, I am doing well, Coach Coleman. It is so exciting, and I'm excited to be here today. Thank you for the invite.
Oh, it's an honor because, like I said before we hopped on, I'm like, the direction that the podcast goes, I think it just aligned well with what it is that you do with KW Wellness. So, like, it was a no brainer to reach out to you and ask, would you do me the honor of being my guest?
Well, yeah, I had the honor of being your first coach inside of our KW Map system. I remember that time. I hold it dearly. Well, you called me your old coach. I would just like to go with first coach, not that old.
Yeah. Let me change that. My first coach, not my first coach. So I do want to ask what because back then there wasn't a KW Wellness, there wasn't that going on. So what was something that came up for you that said, hey, you wanted to go this direction and focus on that?
Great question. I believe it started when I first came to KW. So I came to KW in 2017 by way of a training. And of course, it's so fitting, right? We're a training company disguised as a real estate company. And
Yeah.
I was sitting in a training next to a math coach. And we did a role play. And I got up, walked away, and he ran after me and said, I have a feeling you're a coach. I said, I am. He said, we're looking for coaches for KW or for KW Maps Transformational, which is now performance, which is now coaching. And I said, well, I already know about KW. I've been in other trainings and met lots of agents. I'm definitely interested. I do have real estate experience at that level. I was working for a real estate investment trust at that time. And long story short, I came into the ecosystem, went to a how do you become a maps coach session, went through a year of CV. Yes, it does take that long. And I was invited to become a maps coach. In my very first phone calls, coach, I heard life showing up. Well, I've been trained on all the systems and models to do an amazing job with maps and going through learning the MREA, the pivot shift, teaching to the one thing. What I was hearing in the calls, and perhaps it was just the question I was asking that evoked those responses. And I was hearing life was coming up. I was hearing burnout, stress, overwhelm, guilt for not having time with their kids, feeling like they were missing out. And immediately, from the time I started in 2018 with my first one on one clients, that's when the idea of, something's missing in our coaching, something's missing in the conversation. From the very beginning.
And so that is something that we've seen a lot over the years too, is that there's a lot of burnout that's been happening, especially with the way the market has been shifting for a lot of agents. And one thing that a statistic that I didn't realize was that I think they said 80, if not more percent of the agents have never been in a buyer's market. So the way things are going, it's like it's always been an uptrend, sell, sell, sell. Now you're starting to see things in some markets it's becoming even, but then there's some markets where they're totally shifting to the buyer's market. So that's been a lot of things for them where they're trying to figure out their footing with the way things are going, and in return, they get a lot of that burnout. Okay. So, in your experience, how and we're talking about wellness, and I want to go to the range of physical and mental. How, and I already know this answer, but how important are both of those things when it comes to the performance in business?
Well, you can't have one without the other, essentially. We coach the seven circles of life inside the one thing, and very similar, we have seven pillars of wellness. And the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, the social connections are all connected to the business and the finances. Why do we think this is true? Well, let me give you an example. You ever had closing and you're so excited and the money's in the bank, and you're like, yes, make this closing. I'm great. And then you go home and life comes up. Someone's sick, you're under the weather, or you just got some bad news. Right?
Yeah,
Does that closing less? No. Does that closing fix what's happening at home? No, it doesn't. Right? The
yeah,
same goes the other way around. You could be committed to your daily workouts. You're up at 5 a.m. going to the gym, eating right. Yet if you're not getting the closings, if you're not getting the appointments, if your finances are struggling, you're probably not as optimized and as happy as you could be. So they go hand in hand because it's like a seesaw. Sometimes one part of your life is going to require a little more attention, yet not so much that the seesaw goes all the way where it's in rock bottom. We want there to always be this little teetering of balance in between.
and that's a good point that you bring up. And I've been in that situation where one part of my life is doing good and the other part is not, and you still have that feeling of yes, this is going good, but here it's not, and you're starting to feel down. You're starting to feel dejected, and the area of your life that isn't showing up good starts affecting the area that is. So now the other part of your life is starting to feel that because you're not showing up as the best version of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Is when your circles, if you will call them circles, or your pillars aren't where you want them to be, that's when your mindset starts to override. And there's feelings of imposter syndrome that might start to show up. Or your confidence is waned. This happens a lot, I know, with coaching clients, is they feel guilty that they have a level of success in one area, yet they're not nailing it in the others. There's a conflict that often happens when we're not in symbiotic balance in all the circles. Let's be real. It's a challenge. It takes work to be at an 8 or 9 in all 7 circles of your life at all given times because things happen on any given day. That's why we want to find your optimized number. For some, spiritual might be a 6. That might be something as simple as they're doing their daily meditations, or they're going to church on Sunday, or speaking to a Bible group, whatever that looks like. If they're hitting that 6 consistently, that might be the biggest win you can have at that time. So it's not about having the 9s and 10s in every area of your life at all times. It's, are you able to maximize the best that you can do with the circumstances that are around you?
And for you all that's listening and watching, I'll put a example of what Kimberly is talking about in the descriptions. Is where there's circles, and in each circle it shows the area of your life. So it shows relationships, health, business. It shows all these things, and then you'll be able to grade yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 to see where you land at. And then once you see where you are, it's like, okay, what can I do to move myself higher in each one of these circles? So again, for you all who are not in the KW ecosystem and you're not familiar with that, that's what we're talking about. And again, I'll drop that in the description for this episode so you can be able to grade yourself on it and then say, okay, what are the steps I need to take to get myself from a 4 to at least an 8 or a 5 to a 10, and you can go from there, right? Okay. So, what, and with you being a coach as well, what are some of the common struggles that you're seeing, and I'll say real estate professionals, but one thing I've realized is that entrepreneurs in general kind of struggle with the same thing. But what are some of the struggles that you've seen from people in our profession?
And I love that entrepreneurs do struggle with very similar issues. It's just the industry that they're in that makes it a little more nuanced. Yet most small business owners, entrepreneurs, anyone that is running a P&L essentially struggles from the same type of common problems. I would call those your financial problems. Right? Is there enough money to do fill in the blank? Will I have enough money to do fill in the blank? What happens if I run out of money? So usually finances is one of the first common problems. Another is burnout. Wearing too many hats and doing all the things and not having enough leverage or clarity on what to leverage is another common problem. Burnout. Finances, burnout. And I think the third that I would say is, I mentioned it before, is the imposter syndrome. There often reaches a point of success in agents' lives, and there's a funny feeling that starts to come up around guilt or judgment or fear that they're not going to be able to maintain that level of success. It was a one-hit wonder. So if we look at it, it's finances, activities, and mindset that tends to be what shows up as the biggest problems.
Imposter syndrome, you see that a lot with people where they feel that they feel like, okay, I shouldn't be in this certain room, or I shouldn't have this position, or I shouldn't be doing these things. And one way I've been trying to reframe that thinking for people is saying, hey, that just means you're going in the direction you're supposed to go because you feel uncomfortable. Like it feel like, okay, that means you have to grow because you feel like and this is my phrase that I use for myself, like, okay, I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. Maybe I shouldn't be in this room, but using it as a motivational tool to say, okay, let me prove to myself that this is the room I'm supposed to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all it is a voice of doubt that's saying, "Wow, what am I doing here? What if I get found out? What if I'm a fraud? What if they find out I'm not all these things that they perceive me to be?" And what I've learned through coaching is often we battle that by slowing down and looking at all the wins that got you
Mm,
there. Yeah, all the wins. It's
I
that
like that.
succession and that growth of small wins that take you to the big win. And when we acknowledge all the little steps along the way, it helps to build confidence and it feeds our competence level. It reminds us, oh, I did deserve this because I did all of these things in the past that allowed me to be where I am.
Yeah, and I like you said you just said that because that kind of like segue into the next conversation around self talk and how does self talk shape our results. And I made a post about this, I think yesterday, or I shared a post, and it's like we have to be careful. Our body listens to the things we say, so we have to be careful what we're saying to our body. And that comes around the same thing of us putting that doubt in ourselves. And once we start saying these things, we start holding on to it. So is there any tactics or any things that you you like to, use for people to change the way they're talking to themselves?
Oh, absolutely. One of the easiest ones is the things that you're saying to yourself, the conversations that you're having in your head. Would you say this to someone that you love? Would you say this to your daughter, to your son, to your best friend, your spouse? Would you allow the person that you love for yourself, and hopefully you love yourself first? Would you allow the person that you love the most in this world to run around thinking those thoughts about themselves? And if not, what makes you unworthy of not having that same tolerance for your own self?
That reminds me of the old exercise. I think it was in the original bowl, if I'm not mistaken, where you and your partner share your limiting beliefs with each other. And as you're hearing them share the things, their limited beliefs or the self talk they have for themselves, you listen to it in a different way. Like, I can't believe you're saying this. So it's like us having that same thing for ourselves. Like, I can't believe I'm saying this to myself. Like, if like you said, if I wouldn't let my child or somebody I love say these things about themselves, why am I allowing myself to do that?
Yeah. It's a simple exercise. And if you remember from old brain dumping, get all the thoughts out of your head. Write them all down on a piece of paper. No judgment. Whatever you're thinking, write it all down. And later in that same day, go back and reread them. Reread them from the eyes of, is this true? Is this 100% true? And you'll often find that you become a bigger champion for yourself when someone else begins putting limiting beliefs on you and limitations on you, even when it is your own stuff. We just have to take it out of our head to be able to confront it.
I like the second component to that of getting those doubts because we know we're going to be in a different mindset that we're when we write those things, and like you said, later that day or the next day when we've been through the day and we go back and read it, you'll have a different perspective around those things because you're in a different headspace than you was when you wrote those things down. So I like that exercise. So for you all that's listening, I am very big on practical things that you can do that. You having those thoughts, write it down, give yourself a time frame, come back, read it, and then you can go from there.
And a bonus, look at the list after you've done something that has increased and improved motivation, which can be after your workout, if you've read your morning Bible passages or meditation, after a really inspiring conversation with a best friend. Read through it after you've just put yourself in a state where your energy is high, your confidence is higher. And then begin to see that you will notice the truth isn't always the truth. It's how we make it true, which shows up in our actions.
Mm, I like that. So make sure you all, if you have to, pause this, write that down. That way you're not missing the steps to take. Right? And so when you're working with people, how do you help keep them accountable to a big part is their wellness goals? Because a lot of times, like we talked about a little bit, some people are so focused on this one aspect, and we know that there's no such thing as balance. Everything is counterbalance. But how do you help keep people accountable to do the things for their self to make sure that they're okay?
Will probably not come as a surprise to you. I believe in tracking. We track everything, and we use systems to help us track. We track the numbers in business each week. We also track what's happening in their life through the 7 circles exercise, which I mentioned, or it could be a simple check-in of what's happening that's improving your business, what's happening in your life that might be focused. from your business. It's a check-in. One of the nicest things you can ever ask someone is, how are you doing? The better question, though, is, how are you really doing? I learned that from Ryan Lake at CEO Summit from the agent camp that we just went to. And Ryan Lake said, how many times do we accept okay and fine as the answer? As a coach, just the first answer is usually not the answer. It's that surface answer.
Yep.
Right? So we want to go a little deeper. And then we want to go even a little bit deeper. And it usually takes about 3 or 4. What else? Tell me more. Tell me more. Until we get to the heart of what's happening. If you're winning in business, I'm going to guess that something's happening in your life that's allowing you the space to do it. And if you aren't doing well in business, I'm also going to guess that something's probably happening in life that's causing you not to be where you want to be. So it's a check-in. Where's your motivation coming from? And that's how that's often how I find out what's happening outside of the 4 walls of business.
And you are 100% correct. You can feel a person's energy shift after you ask them the first time, "How are you doing?" And then you say, "No, like, how are you really doing? How are you?" Like, you really emphasize on how are you. You can see their energy or feel that shift where it's like, okay, we're starting to get past the surface level and really see what's going on. And a lot of times, what I've noticed a lot lately is a lot of people need that. They don't have that where once you be like, no, how are you really doing? They get to just let it all out and share what's really been bothering them. So I like that you really highlight that for, our listeners. Like, no, you can't just leave it at, hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing okay. You can't leave it at that because when somebody is really doing okay, they'll let you know, like, oh, I'm doing great. I just did this, and then the kids had that, and then I picked up this. They'll tell you all the good things, but when it comes to where they may not be in the right space, they'll just say, oh, I'm okay, everything's going fine. And then once you really dig deep into it, you're able to see what's really going on.
Yeah. And it's important. It's important to have those conversations, not even in a coaching relationship, just with the people in our lives. We have become so good at masking problems. And that masking and hiding can create illness. It can create depression. It can create isolation. And when you know that there's another person out there who, not by blood, cares about you, it's a feel-good moment. And we need more feel-good moments in our life.
And that brings me to the next question I have with being a coach, and you are there to help people self discover. You're there to help people through the process. What are some of your daily practices? What are the things that you do to pour into yourself and to keep you grounded as you are there to help lead others?
Well, I heavily lean into the 4 cornerstones of wellness, which is nutrition, exercise, stress management, and sleep. So I fuel my body with foods that keep me creative and energized throughout the day. I exercise daily. I believe I'm on I think it's a 7-year streak with never missing a week Peloton. And I think I'm on however long I've had Apple Watches from which they came out, and they've been tracking. I've never missed a week of a workout. And it's not a bragging point. For me, that's proof. Consistency supports my mindset. I also look at stress management, which is I start and end my days at very specific times. I believe in full days off. I protect my schedule like nobody else knocks in my world, and I assist to help as well. I have very clear boundaries on when I work and when I make myself available to the world. And I also have very clear boundaries when it is personally my time to refuel and reset. And the last, my super secret power is sleep. I used to be a horrible, horrible sleeper. If I kept 4 hours, I thought that was a win. And I started to study the science behind sleep and learn that sleep is very much like the dishwasher cycle for our brain. It's the rinse. It gives us a chance to regain energy, to let all the thoughts subside. And sleep is so connected to our longevity. And that is where I put my most effort. Is my sleep starts about 3:30, 4 o'clock with very natural, healthy supplements. I'm in bed at a very routine time, very consistent, 8:30. I have a very healthy sleep hygiene routine. I aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. And of everything that I do, nutrition, exercise, stress management, and sleep, it is stress management and sleep that have had the biggest impact on my well-being.
And I personally know I have to get better at the sleep aspect of things. I used to hang my hat on like, oh, I don't need more than 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and I know that that is not good. So I have been working on going to bed earlier. Some nights I still slip up and it's 12 and then I'm right back up at 4 or something going to the gym. So I have been getting better at that. So, and the stress management part, that is something that I've been working on because I know that I can get stressed out so easily. So it's like starting to have that mindset for me is if I cannot personally change something, then I don't need to worry about it. Like if there's nothing in my physical being that I can do to make something different, I am not going to focus on it anymore.
Yeah. Oh, I just heard the foundation of focusing on what you can control.
Yeah, I have been one of those people in the past that I know I can't control things, but I let it get to me, or I was a forward thinker. So I was stressing about things that haven't even happened yet, and it might not happen, but I would let it get to me. And then my best friend, he like, why are you worried about things that have not happened? And you not it may not happen. And I'm like, you bring up a good point. So I've been working on those things of just like, if I can't control it, I'm not going to worry about it. And it doesn't matter what I think is going to happen. I can't focus on that.
Yeah. That stress about the future, we call that anxiety. That
Yeah.
anxiety. And the difference between anxiety and fear is based and rooted in something that there tends to be something factual about it. Right?
Mm,
Anxiety is more rooted in the fear of something that may have happened or that we imagine could happen in the future. So often the anxiety is about what could happen, where fear is about what could happen because of something that's happened in the past. So it's very interesting the way that fear and anxiety work and the way that our mind can fuel that fear and that anxiety.
and we know this, and I personally know this that the same way you can manifest good things, you can manifest the wrong things because you're putting all your energy into, like I said, that anxiety around something that we don't have no proof is going to happen. But yet, if we just constantly think about that, then we put that energy out there. That's what ends up coming back to us because we just kept thinking about that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the fear that shows up so often in our mindset is what leads to that negative self talk. It's that fear because the fear is driving. There's a danger. There's immediate threat. Something is coming for my life, my livelihood, or my financial situation, family. We feel threatened, and so that fear presents itself. And then our mind goes into overdrive to protect us from that fear. It tries to calm us down by saying things that aren't necessarily true, which is what we call limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And the anxiety is more around an imagining of what could happen. It's about creating a picture And then there's emotions attached to that exact feeling of what that future could look like. And that's when that anxiety comes in. And they both impact our mindset equally. And that's something that we have to learn how to control and manage. And we can do that through healthy techniques like exercise and sleep, self-care, journaling, talking it out. Talk therapy and coaching is one of the best ways to manage your fears and your anxieties. Is when we attempt to problem solve on our own, it's not that successful for the most part. Even as coaches, we use other coaches and lean on other coaches.
Yeah, and you just said something that for my listeners that listen all the time, what's that common thing that popped up again? Journaling, journaling, having somebody that you could go to and talk to. Those are common themes that just been showing up on pretty much every episode leading up to the like. This is episode 23. Every episode, somebody has talked about that aspect of journaling and having somebody they can talk to, which has been one of up until recently has been one of my struggles because I have been one of those people that I just internalize everything. And my I figured out my coping mechanism was let me help everybody else and don't worry about what I'm dealing with. Like, no, I'm just going to help everybody else so I don't have to face and deal with my struggles. So that's been one of the things that I've opened up to of like, okay, have to have people that I talk to about things, have to start journaling, have to start doing these things so that way I am putting myself in a good position and not just using me helping everybody else to get away from what I need to deal with.
Yeah. We call that avoidance.
Yes.
Yes. And we also call it helpful avoidance, where you believe that you're doing something good. Right? And at the same time, we're still not facing what we want to work on and what would be most valuable for us to work on, which is often ourselves. And that's a common mechanism that we use in behavior that keeps us from self-discovery, personal development, and reaching those breakthroughs in our life and in our business. When we avoid the conversations and confronting our own personal stuff, we're basically just saying everyone else in the world is far more important. And I'm just going to put myself on the back burner. I'm going to put myself on the shelf. I'll get around to it. And you know what happens? You never get around to it. And instead, it just continues to fester.
That was something hard hitting when like my energy shifted when you just said, hey, I'm pretty much telling myself everybody else is more important than me. By me just saying I'll deal with that later. I'll put myself on the shelf like that. You saying that was like wow, because you don't think of it that way as being the person in it, but having that outside perspective of this is what it looks like is like okay, that is not a good way to handle things and go about things.
Yeah. One of our certified KW wellness coaches, who's certified in health and wellness coaching, Crystal Lawson, had mentioned a long time ago when she started doing our Wellness Wednesday calls. She brought into the call the concept of you can't pour from an empty cup. And we've all heard that phrase before. It's that part wasn't new. It was the second part that immediately became adopted by KW Wellness. And what Crystal shared was you can't pour from an empty cup. Learn to pour from the saucer. Keep your cup filled at all times and overflow it so you're serving from the saucer. And we don't have to keep depleting ourselves, running into burnout, getting to that point of feeling empty and drained that shows up and manifests by feeling sick, tired, you need a day off, cranky, irritable, because you're at the bottom of your cup. Instead, keep yourself energized and filled and let others benefit from the overflow. And that became truly the foundation of what we want to try at KW Wellness. And along with the first founding member, who suggested that the sixth job of a real estate agent, we know our 5 jobs from Bold. And for those that aren't with KW, that's lead gen, lead follow up, go on appointments, negotiate contracts, role play, and practice.
Yep.
The sixth job of a real estate agent is self care and self preservation. Take care of yourself, you're the foundation of the business, and everything else will then build upon it.
So, why do you think that people avoid that part of things, the self care part? Do you think it's they feel like they haven't earned it, or they feel like they're going to miss out on something? Like, why do people feel like taking care of their self is a bad thing?
It's a great question. Well, I don't have actual science, I do have theories. I think there's many different reasons. One being it's not something that's taught in the home. A lot of our home life is not dependent upon taking care of ourselves. It's day to day. And even as parents, we lean on schools to provide that outlet for recess and play. And if you are in play, if you're in a sport, there tends to be a high level of competition. Right? Everyone gets a trophy in kindergarten, first, and third grade. Yet at some point it changes, it becomes more competitive, and it is more about performance. I think just in a cultural level, self care isn't something that is common. Whereas the Dutch, they have what's called hygiene. I might be pronouncing it wrong. HYGE. It's a way of life. The Italians have the same thing. They have a 2 o'clock break. And other cultures, they create it. It's part of what they do. We're in a rat race, hustle, hustle. And other cultures slow it down, and it's built into their frameworks. Heck, there's countries in Europe where they take an entire month off. And to visit there, it's really bad to be a tourist because everything's closed. Right? So
Yeah,
it is not part of our fabric of who we are. And then by the time that we're able to enjoy it,
too
we're
late.
usually so ingrained it's too late. And so it becomes it's a new thing that we learn how to take care of ourselves.
It's that whole hustle culture. It's that whole perspective of you have to constantly go, go, go. And you see that a lot. And going back to when you like you make sure you get your rest. When you see on social media, you see people post like, "Oh, just leaving the office at midnight," and then they post again like, "Oh, I'm back up at 4." And it's like, no, that's not being productive. It's just like working out, where you, your body does the things it needs to do when you rest, not when you're doing the workout. It's when you rest. So if you're not resting, your body is not going to show up the way you want it to. And people think like, "Oh, I have to just keep working out, keep working out." No, to your point, no, you have to make sure you're getting your rest, because that's the only time your muscles, your body is going to be able to do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. It also is the only time that your brain gets a chance to stop. Even when you are sitting in silence, your brain is active. So if you think about it, if you're awake for 16 hours of the day, your brain is moving. Like it's absorbing all of these bits of information. You're only able to process a very small amount. And in this time frame, imagine like your car engine constantly running for 16 hours. And sleep is the key that turns off. Well, what's going to happen to your car in those 16 hours, Jesse? It's going to get low on fuel. It's
Yeah,
probably going to start, the tires are probably, like, especially if you're driving it, they're going to get more and more.
yeah,
All the fluid levels are going to decrease. Our bodies are the same thing. Every waking moment, we are decreasing our 100% capacity. Sleep allows us to refuel. And without that level of sleep, we then begin to get cranky, tired. We're not making very clear decisions. We're stressing our body, we're stressing our minds. And we're often not winning in a way that we could be if we slowed down. Have you ever heard that phrase, slow down to speed up?
yes, yes.
Think of sleep as your daily slowdown and your waking hours as your speed up.
And so I want to ask you this. So I figured it out for myself, but everybody is different. What are some nighttime routines for people to sleep? Because here's the reason I say that and it still happens every now and then, but I have been one of those people that my body sleep, but my mind is not. Like I've literally woken up, my body woke up, but I noticed that I was overthinking. Like my brain was not asleep. My body was asleep, my brain was still going. Is there some techniques or things that people can do that may be like that where their brain is just actively working, where they wake up, their body is okay, but they're mentally tired?
Yeah, absolutely. And this works for some, not all. Yeah, your sleep routine actually doesn't start when your head hits the pillow. Your sleep routine generally starts about 2 hours, if not 3 hours, before your bedtime. I know that means if you're going to bed at 9, 6 o'clock is really your wind down time. At 6 o'clock, most of us are maybe just leaving an appointment or you're just finishing your last call. You're not even thinking about dinner, right? So we have to first get clear with what time does sleep start. So that's number one. And that starts with what time do you want to wake up in the morning. So Jesse, what time do you wake up in the morning?
I wake up 4:30.
Okay, so let's count back. What's your range between 7 to 9 hours of sleep? How many hours of sleep would you want to get every night?
I would want to get I would want to get 8 hours of sleep.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
eight.
let's go back from 4:30 a.m. What is 8 hours before 4:30 a.m.?
So let me see. Do quick math. So about 8:30,
8,
8:30.
8:30. What time are you normally in bed, Jesse?
I'm probably in bed. Here's the bad. Yeah, so I'm probably in bed around 10, but I'm scrolling. So
Okay,
I
so
have to
you're in
kind
bed at 10. Let me just coach you for a second. Let me just make sure I'm
of
hearing this. You're in bed at 10, you're scrolling, and you want to be up at 4:30, and you want 8 hours of sleep.
yes, yes.
What would have to change to make that statement true to be able to wake up at 4:30?
So I need to get in bed earlier than the 10 time, and I need to. I don't need to. I want to put my phone down and just put it to the side so I can just be in bed and starting to get in the process of shutting my brain off and going to sleep.
Right, and that's the secret weapon right there. So if 8:30 is I'm in bed, my body now begins to believe that it's time to go to sleep. You want to train your body to recognize your bed is for sleep,
Yeah.
and we only want to be in the bed when it's time for sleep. And so 8:30 is when your head hits the pillow, which means the 90 minutes before is your sleep hygiene activity. That's when you are winding down, you're not using your phone, you're choosing what is being entered into your brain. So this is a great time for no TV, minimal phones. It's hard, I know, to cut off that phone. Yeah, no phones, no interaction, because it keeps your brain active throughout the
And,
night.
and the crazy part about it, and I realized this actually last night. Well, I've been realized this, but it really hit me last night is that I am not actively looking for anything.
It's a
It's
habit.
just that it's just a death scroll of just strolling. I'll go
It's a
from
habit.
platform to platform. And it's like, and I caught myself last night, like, bro, you are not even looking for anything constructive. You're just scrolling. So yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to use something, if the addiction, and I will call it the addiction or the comfortability of having the phone in your hand is important to you before you go to bed, there's some tweaks you can do. You can journal, use your phone as a journal, and log off and brain dump before you go to bed. Because when you get it out of your brain, it releases the need to hold on to it and figure it out while you're asleep. So get it all out. Whatever's stressing you, look at your schedule the next day and figure out how do I want to be prepared for that. What can I take care of the night before? So I don't wake up feeling like I've got something to do. Right? The more that you prepare for a good night's sleep, the better it's going to serve you. So for you, let's just use you as an example. Your nighttime routine is about 6:30, 7 o'clock, which means if your last meal would be about 6 p.m. Allow you time to digest. Because when you go to bed on a full stomach, it's harder to get a good night's sleep. So 6:30 is about your final meal. 6:30 to 7, you're starting to wind down. 7 to 8, that's your relaxing the brain. Your brain dumping, journaling, reading, listening to music, even some movement. A 20 to 30-minute walk, evening walk, can help prepare yourself for sleep. By 8 o'clock, you start to turn down the lights. And you create a sleep environment similar to a cocoon. You turn down the air. Studies show that sleeping between 67 and 72 degrees is the ideal and optimized sleep temperature. And you prepare your sleep for bed. And the reason I say that is you prepare your sleep for bed because your sleep is an activity. And when you create a pattern, 66 days to create a habit, your mind will start to realize, oh, Jesse turned off the TV. Now we're going for a walk. Oh, Jesse just had a small protein drink. He just took his magnesium. He just took his glycinate. He's now having his L-theanine. Oh, now we're going into the bedroom. Jesse put on sound noise. And what's happening, your brain is starting to recognize this pattern. And your brain will always do what you train it to do. And then it will respond and give you a more relaxing sleep. Not a guarantee of a great sleep. It'll certainly put you into a relaxing state.
I'm glad you broke that down because what I know is a lot of people don't realize that one, there's science behind getting a good night's sleep, right? And two, it is very important that we do that because again, I shared the example of my brain, even when I'm supposed to be asleep, my brain is still working, that it plays a big part in how we show up the next day. So I'm glad you were able to break that down for the listeners and also for myself, because as you were talking about it, I started pinpointing things that I need to change. Like, you know what? Put the phone down. You know what? Have a routine of, okay, I'm going to do this. That way my body starts knowing, like, oh, it's time to shut down because he's going to go to sleep. So it just, as you were saying that, I'm like, okay, let me start putting the pieces of the puzzle together of what it is that I'm going to do so I can get the sleep that I need.
Yeah. There's so much science as to why sleep matters. There's a biological process and a physiological state that's happening when we sleep. Remember when I compared it to the dishwasher, the rinse cycle? Well, what's happening when we sleep is so much is happening inside of our body. It's helping to repair our heart and our blood vessels from all the activities of the day. This is when we regulate hormones, which this is a really important time for women, especially women that are premenopausal and postmenopause. Sleep is when cortisol, which is what causes that little belly fat that you can't seem to ever get rid of. Sleep is what counteracts and challenges those hormones. And it causes them to regulate and become more normal. Also, if you're struggling with diabetes or prediabetes, sleep helps manage your blood sugar during the night. It helps to keep that balanced spike, which is why taking a little bit of protein before you go to bed and healthy fats is beneficial, and avoiding the sugary carbs because your body's attempting to process everything you've eaten during the night, which can cause those glucose spikes, which is why so many times you wake up at 2 and 3 in the morning, eyes wide open. It's because your blood sugar is going through a roller coaster and your cortisol hormones have just been awakened, because that's the time of day, 1 to 3 in the morning, when your liver is processing. So everything that we do to get to that sleep is to actually get through that 1 to 3 waking window, which is when your blood sugar is being managed and when the hormones are being balanced. We also know this is when we clear out the brain toxins. Sleep allows all of that negative energy and that not so good for us to oxides go out as we sleep. It helps to clear our memories. It also helps to organize our thoughts and help preserve what's important that's happened throughout the day. That's why we can wake up feeling more alert and not foggy and tired. So it's more than just getting a good night's sleep. It's actually saying to our body, thank you for the 24 hours that we've had together. Let's take some time off now. There's so much science to it, Jesse.
Yeah.
I'm
And
a nerd about this. Sorry.
no, because it makes you think about it when people say, oh, I want to, I want to have a good morning, so I have this and that. It's like, no, to have a good morning, you have to have a good night. Like you have to, your morning starts the night before, and that's pretty much, you giving a breakdown and ideas of how to make that happen. This is the things you do to control your night. That way, you can have the morning, win the morning, win the day. It's like it's a whole puzzle that goes together where you can't have one without the other.
Yeah. To sum up of everything that we've talked about today, to combat negative self-talk, to make time for self-care, to win in your business, to manage anything that's going on in your business and to manage what's going on in your life, to be able to be present for your family, your friends, to be able to love yourself first, and to be able to show up in the world the way that you want to. So everyone else's problem is not your emergency. It starts with a good night's sleep. Because when you sleep right, everything else becomes something that you feel that you can't control. And when the lack of sleep begins to wear down your mindset and your energy levels, you then begin to feel that you're at the beck of everyone else's call. Stay in control of your life simply by starting with sleep.
So at the end of each episode, I always ask my guests two questions, and you just answered one of them. Because I'm like, what would be one thing you want to leave with our listeners? And you knocked that out of the park. The second question I ask, it usually throws people off because it kind of comes out of left field, and I love that. So, if there was one thing that you can tell your younger self, what would that be?
One thing I would tell my younger self, that is left field. I would say get in real estate earlier. That's what I would tell my younger self. I would say invest in real estate, buy the Bitcoin,
Do all the
find
things.
ways to secure your financial future. Because when your finances are set and when you have that stress relieved and removed from your life, the choices that you make, the decisions that you get to make from a place of non-fear
Yeah.
are life-changing. That's the one thing I would say is find ways to achieve wealth faster. Because when you do receive it and you do achieve it, it's a game changer.
I love it. Kimberly, thank you so much for doing me the honor of being a guest. This was a great episode for me because I would just wanted to dive deep into a lot of the things that we talked about. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity. I know that we spread through all 7 circles of life. And I leave this for those that may not be familiar with our KW world. Tap into a great book called The One Thing, written by Jay Papasan and Gary Keller. It
Yes.
discusses much of what Jesse and I talked about today. Because when you get clarity with what's most important to you, it makes all the decisions you make so much easier. And if there's one thing that I leave for you today, it's health is the first wealth. So go focus on your wellness. It impacts your well-being. And watch all the other parts of your life just flourish as well.
And we're going to mic drop on that. Everybody, thank you for checking into another episode of Breakthrough Blueprint, the podcast where we help you tap into your full potential. See you next week. Peace.